John Greenberry, by number M here, who was the first, married Mary Miller. She was the daughter of a Baptist preacher, and they had 10 children. And then they moved, he moved with his 10 children to Missouri. And all of the children, except his youngest, William, would remain in Missouri. When Bill was in the service, he was stationed in Missouri, and he went to church with a man named Nolen. Looked just like Uncle Ben or Uncle G, but he wasn't interested in but now he wishes he found out who they were. But I'm sure it was part of the family. Yep. But William and John, he married. The youngest was William C. Nolen, and he married Molly Leachman. They had 4 children, and the Leachmans had moved from Missouri to the Dallas area. I know Daddy was born in Oak Cliff, and most of the children were born in Oak Cliff. They call it Dallas now, it's part of Dallas. But here's Daddy. At one time, my great-grandfather was the city marshal of Nolens, Texas. And he owned a store there with my grandfather. And after my great-grandfather's wife died, he moved to Jackson County, which is just about 10 miles from here, just across the county line. And worked on a ranch. And a couple of years later, his son, which is my grandfather, G.G. Jr., had come to Texas too, and they moved on a ranch just below Grenada, probably where the lake is right now, because it was just a few miles below Grenada on the Navidad River. William's son George, who were descendants, married Nellen Roberts in 1885. There are pictures of them here on the where you sign in. He was 20, she was 16. First they lived in Duncanville, and then they moved to the Louise area. And while they were in Dallas area, Orrin, Holly, Nina, G.G. Jr., Tiny Warren, Edith, and Benjamin were born. And after they moved to South Texas, Willie Maud and Jack were born. And then later they moved to the Horton Ranch on the county line, Jackson Horton County line, and this is where their 10th child was born, Kathleen. The mother of these 10 children, on the death of the 10th child, got an infection. She lived 3 months and suffered terribly. And Grandpa was left with 10 children. Of course, he was devastated. In the books, there are letters written by Grandpa to his relatives about the death of his mother, and it will just break your heart to read them. How much he loved her and how devastated he was at her loss. But Orrin was 17, Ollie 15, Nina 14, Gigi 13, was 13, Edith 11, Tiny 9, Ben 6, Willie Maud was just 4, Jack was just 2, and Kathleen was just 3 months. A maid was buried in a little country cemetery out on a ranch below Grenada, and there's several families buried out there. And a number of years ago, because the cattle were knocking down the tombstones, people had family there, put a chain link fence around it. And now you can't see it. It's so overgrown that you can't even see a tombstone. And we went out last summer and saw it. And It's just a forgotten little place. At one time, they couldn't afford a marker for grandmother's plot, so they had a little marble washstand, and they took that little marble top off of the washstand and put it on her grave. And but you can't see that now. One time, Grandpa told his son Gigi that he hoped that someday that the children would put a marker of some kind there so that they wouldn't be forgotten. But they never did. And Grandpa's buried there, their daughter Nina, and great-grandpa W.C. Nolen are all buried out in that little cemetery. A few years ago, I was at a funeral and I met a lady named Miss Gladys Appley. She had been Edith's best friend, same age as Edith. And she said she would never forget the day that grandmother died. She said the wind just howled all day as if the whole world was just moaning. She said it blew all day long. She said it was so mournful that she would never forget it. And so she was terribly missed. My daddy, even when he was an old man, never spoke of his mother without tears, just crocodile tears streaming down his face. So devastated by the death of his beloved wife, Grandpa took his family back to Dallas for 2 years so that relatives there could help raise the little children. And then we moved back to Louise. Grandpa went to work for, we had, downtown there was a big store that actually went the whole block. It was the grocery store, the grocery store. They sold bales of cotton and a little bit of everything else. There are pictures of it over there, of downtown Louise back there in those days. And he worked there until Mr. Appley died, and then Mr. Gordon bought it. He worked there, and great-grandpa died, and my daddy took over, and he ran the store until the Depression. And I'll never forget the day I was in the first grade when Daddy come home from work and said they closed the store because of the Depression. Mr. Appley couldn't, nobody could pay him. And so we moved to the farm then. 8 years after May's death, Gigi remarried, and he remarried Miss Emma too. Now, Emma was 37 at the time, and people call her an old maid, but she loved children, and she looked after the Nolen children just like a little Annie hen. They had one daughter, Lillian Morris, and all of the brothers and sisters called her Little Sis. Well, when we grew up, I remember one time Uncle Artie come to visit us, and I said something about Aunt Lillian Morris, and he said, "She's your Aunt Sis," and so we always called her Aunt Sis the rest of her life. When I was when we first moved back to Texas, I worked in a nursing home in El Campo, and my first day there, a lady asked me where I was from, and I said Louise, and she said, "Well, I'm from East Bernard." She said, "Do you know the Stockton family?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, my father worked for the Stockton family on the farm in East Bernard, and Miss Stockton's sister, Miss Emma, would come and take us children swimming and pick blueberries, and she just loved children, and we loved her." She said, "Can you tell me what happened to Miss Emma?" And I just laughed, and I said, "Yes, she married my grandpa with 10 kids."